President Erdogan wins another term in Turkey. What will this mean for the country and beyond? Hello, I'm Arnold Naidu, and this is The Heat. Turkey, a country divided between Asia and Europe, is also straddling the political divide. President Recep Tayyip Erdogan won the second round last Sunday by a thin margin, 52% of the votes. Erdogan called for unity and stressed the need to focus on the country's economy. CGTN's Mikhail David reports from Istanbul.
For millions of Recep Tayyip Erdogan supporters, it is a day of celebration, after their leader secured yet another victory and extended his rule as president of Turkiye by another 5 years. In his victory speech to a cheering crowd, Erdogan called for unity.
As part of the responsibility our nation has given us, we are not angry, resentful, or angry with anyone. Now is the time to put aside all the debates and conflicts regarding the election and unite around our national goals and dreams.
Erdogan also said that inflation was the most urgent issue for the country, but the Turkish president backs an unorthodox economic policy of lowering interest rates to lower inflation, the very opposite approach to that followed by most central banks. Turkey's inflation reached a record 85% in October, and last month it was over 43%. The economy has been a crucial issue in this election, with many Turks facing challenges due to soaring food prices. The Turkish lira has significantly depreciated over the past decade, losing over 90% of its value. On Monday, with news of a victory for Erdogan, the lira hit a new record low against the dollar. During his address, Erdogan also stressed the importance of winning back the Istanbul mayorship for his party next year as the country prepares for local elections. In a statement issued after the early results, his defeated challenger, Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu, criticized the electoral process.
We witnessed the most unfair election in recent years. All state resources were mobilized for a single political party. Every possibility was provided to one individual.
Kılıçdaroğlu is referring to the limited media coverage the opposition was provided during the electoral process, which was also underlined by international observers on Monday. In the initial round of voting, Erdogan's People Alliance had already secured a majority in parliament. With his victory in the presidential race, Erdogan and his AK Party now firmly hold the reins of power. Mikhail David, CGTN, Istanbul.
There is a lot to discuss. Let's bring in our panelists. From Ankara, Tulin Daloglu is a journalist. From Istanbul, Hakan Camuz is Director of International Law at Stoke White Law Firm. Here in Washington, D.C., Giran Ozcan is Executive Director of the Kurdish Peace Institute. And from Maryland, we are joined by Yenal Kucuker. He is Capital Region Vice President of the Assembly of Turkish American Associations. Thank you, everyone, for being with us. Hakan, let me start with you. So Erdogan has been re-elected another 5 years. It was not easy. He was forced into a runoff election. But he's won. To what do you attribute his victory, given that Turkey is facing serious economic problems right now? And we know that in many elections, anywhere in the world, it's people vote with their pocketbooks, normally.
The perfect word to finish your sentence, Anand, normally. But this election wasn't a normal one. This election was more about identity. It was about Turkish nation who stood by Mr. Erdogan because of what he believed the kind of dangers this country was facing. And he united his voters simply because they trust him, they believe in him, and that he will deliver resolution for the economic crisis for this country, which is what he said straight after his victory. On his speech, he addressed the crowd in which he said that he will address the economic issues, immediate priority. He said he will bring in team of economics that will have international credibility, and he will fix the inflation. And people believe him, and you know this is the reason why they voted for him. the fact that he's gone into, this is his 15th election, referendum, local elections that he's gone through in his entire time in power in the last 22 years. And that is a success story. No known political leader has ever been into so many elections and come out victorious. And so that makes him a reliable, trusted leader that this nation loves and loves to vote for him, and they did so on this occasion as well.
Giran, Ozcan, what do you make of what Hakan just told us, that the Turkish people actually have faith in Erdogan? They believe he's the person who's going to get them out of this economic morass that the country finds itself in right now.
Well, I mean, the numbers are there for everyone to see. Half the country does, yes. Just a little bit over half the country believes that to be the case. The other half don't. 1 in 2 people did not vote for Erdogan, actually voted to remove him from office. Now, I'd say that especially in the last decade, Erdogan has been able to really take control of the state apparatus in Turkey. And we saw in this election campaign, he was able to control all state resources and utilize them in his campaign. I mean, we have figures and statistics coming in from all over the place. I mean, the Turkish state broadcaster, TRT, gave him more than 30 hours of airtime. And his the candidate that was running against him got a mere minutes, a tiny portion of what was given to Erdogan. So when you have such control of both state resources, but also even in the private sector, with about 90% of the media controlled by Erdogan, only being able to convince half the country to vote for you and the other half to completely oppose you, I wouldn't say that that's the success that Mr. Camuz is portraying.
Giran, I just want to get back to something you were saying earlier on, that Mr. Erdogan won by just over half, and that's correct. He got 52% of the vote. Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu, who was the opposition leader, got 48% of the vote. That's a significant number of votes. Despite losing, is the opposition energized by this?
I'd say that there is an air of disappointment that will take a few more days probably to get over. But I think now going into the local elections, there was some interesting results, especially in cities like Istanbul and Ankara, that the opposition won. And as you can remember, in 2019, the opposition actually did win the municipalities in Turkey's 2 biggest cities. And from the numbers that we saw in this election, the opposition is able to bring together a lot of segments of the peoples in Turkey. And that is what is needed to be successful, especially in the local elections, and to keep hold of municipalities like Ankara and Istanbul.
Tulin, great to have you with us. It's been a long time, and happy birthday.
Thank you.
Well, looking at the results, as we just had, I think it's fair to say that Turkiye is split down the middle. Nonetheless, Erdogan is talking about unity. I mean, can he unite the country? And what do you think are the issues around which he can bring these disparate political groups together?
Whether he can unite the country, this has been the question for the past 21, 22 years. And it is something that he cannot. He polarizes the people so that he can win the election. And as we see from the results of this election is that 1 out of every 2 people either voted for Mr. Erdogan or his challenger, Mr. Kılıçdaroğlu. The country is almost divided like a watermelon. For him to, I mean, we have listened to him after each election with this rhetoric that he's going to unite the country, but then in the following, phrases, he claims that the opposition parties are in some way in relation with the terrorist organizations. And that is just really a very poisonous rhetoric, because it really, I mean, we do not know in what sense Mr. Kılıçdaroğlu is related to any terrorist organization. Is this a line of thinking? Is this a line of physical attribution? What exactly it is, it's a big question mark. But once you impose that to the people, and this has been going around for 2 decades now. We have come to a point that people in this election cycle were really anxious to see him out. It didn't happen. So what it does is that people are now kind of demoralized that it didn't happen. But on the other hand, they are sort of feeling fed up with this rhetoric of being accused as a terrorist or in some way not, falling in the line of a patriot. And people do not know exactly what this means. And what he portrays now is that he's going to narrow the democratic principles. And again, there's a lot of uncertainty as to what that means.
Right.
But that rhetoric, that one line that he's going to unite the country is very different than the practice that's been going around.
Tulin, very briefly, I mean, from what you were saying, do you think there's any space right now for him to be more conciliatory if he's talking about unity?
I don't know how to answer that, so I'll pass it. We have to wait and see how he's going to play out his political game after this round. But this was the most difficult win for him. I wouldn't call it as a victory because this is really a very close call. He won 52% of the nationwide votes in 2018 election, and now he did win again 52%. He didn't lose anything, he didn't gain anything. But his challenger has, in the 2018 presidential election, it was a different person, but then it was 32% of the nationwide vote. Now it's almost 48%. So there is a different kind of a societal dynamic that he cannot, do away. I just do not know how he's going to play out with this one.
Yenal, as Giran Ozcan told us a moment ago, the results of the election were regarded as being free but unfair. The opposition, of course, has not contested the outcome of the election. The fact that it was free but unfair was also something that the monitors from the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe, the OSCE, said. They said it was a well-managed election, but it took place on what it called an unlevel playing field, and they cited the things that Giran told us a moment ago, things like access to television, to the right to assemble, the right to gatherings, etc. Does this put anything of a question mark over the outcome of the election?
No, I don't. Well, not if you're asking my personal opinion, it doesn't. Obviously, this is a known thing. This has been going on for many years, and a lot of the experts, both on the European side as well as the United States, are highlighting some of the uneven field that you're referencing, and it's been that way for quite some time. Again, based on the observations and based on all the reporting that's coming from both from Europe and the United States as well. But that doesn't necessarily, nobody's questioning the outcome here. In fact, if that were the case, Secretary Blinken, President Biden, and all the other NATO Secretary General and you name it, all the government leaders from around the world wouldn't be sending messages to congratulate President Erdogan's next term.
Hakan, what is your response to these comments that we've heard, especially from the OSCE, saying that there was an unlevel playing field, the election was free but unfair?
Both Tulin and Giran's responses are semantics. They're not really dealing with the major question that you're asking, the main issue of he won the election and Mr. Kılıçdaroğlu lost the election. And this is the fact. Defeat is something you accept. I actually wanted to say at the beginning of the program, Victor Hugo said once, nothing stands before the idea whose time has come. The time has come for people to understand that using international media and many other tools they had in their possession to somehow socially engineer political sphere in Turkey, days are over. And collaborating with everyone else is not going to get you anywhere. You just have to be a genuine leader who represents the will of people, which is what he has been doing for the last over the 20 years that we have witnessed him governing this country. That's why they vote him again and again and again. And like Tulin said, they've come all together, 7 major parties together. They couldn't still defeat him. There's no need to try to say, oh, there wasn't enough media coverage and stuff. That's just semantics you're talking about, because media coverage in Turkey, especially the negative media coverage, not just from local Turkish media outlets that support the opposition, but also entities like Economist, Le Figaro, Washington Post, and every other Western media outlet supported the opposition right from the months ahead of the election. They have said everything about Erdogan. In fact, the opposition lied through their teeth, saying, oh, he's not going to do the election and everything. Nothing worked. He wins the election because he's a genuine leader of this country. And people love him. They trust him. He earned that trust. You have to accept the fact that this is what people choose, free, willingly, and you're going to have integrity in accepting this.
Giran, Ozcan, is this semantics?
Well, no, I mean, I think he either doesn't know what semantics means, or he's clearly misusing it, because we can reference exact statistics as to how Erdogan was able to utilize state resources against his competition. And I mean, I think Hakan is a perfect example of the atmosphere that we have in the country right now, whereby Erdogan won 52% of the vote, but the opposition got 48% of the vote. And the 48% of this country, of Turkey, are people of the country. They can't be seen as people who are representing international interests in wanting to socially engineer Turkey. And that is how he sees them. I mean, he just made it very clear, because 48% of the people voted to remove Erdogan from power. They are citizens as much as the 52% that voted for Erdogan.
How is that different from any other election? How is that different from any other election that takes place around the world? I mean, you're not making any sense. It's like there's 2 political leaders trying to get elected for the position in the country. How is that different from any other election taking place around the world? Explain, please. I mean, what does that mean? Like, Biden gets elected.
All right, give him a chance to explain.
Yeah, firstly, for example, what I'm trying to say is how Hakan is very representative and reflects the atmosphere that this government has been pumping, the polarization that he's been pumping over the last few years to win elections, and they're clearly working. I don't understand why Hakan thinks that people aren't accepting the results. They are. Their opposition themselves have accepted the results. They're not contesting anything right now. They've accepted and they're moving on. We're here analyzing what happened in these elections, and I think Hakan should allow us. I mean, I know he's used to the environment in Turkey where they can suppress and shut everyone up. But I mean, I'm sorry, but there are thousands of miles between us, Hakan, and you're not going to be able to do that here. But
no, I'm not trying. No, seriously, I'm not trying. I'm just saying, look, if Biden's going into election now, are you going to go on a TV and say somebody's trying to remove Biden? Is that the word you're going to use? It's an election between the 2 individuals. What's wrong with saying it that one party lost and the other one won? It's not about removing somebody from power.
I'm going to finish with one sentence, because more than anything I can actually say on this program, Hakan's behavior is enough to explain to our audience what's wrong in Turkey right now.
I need to move on. Yenal, let's talk about the sum of the U.S. response to the election outcome in Turkiye. Let's listen to what President Biden said. He did make a call, actually, to congratulate Erdogan on his win, but let's listen to what Biden had to say.
I spoke to Erdogan and congratulated Erdogan, and he still wants to work on something on the F-15s. I told him we wanted to deal with Sweden until I get that done.
So it seems President Biden is looking at this in a very transactional way. He's saying, we'll give you fighter jets if you let Sweden into NATO. I mean, how likely is that to impact Turkish foreign policy?
Before I address that, we have a president here in the United States that was a vice president under President Obama administration. So he spent obviously two terms with President Obama as vice president. So he knows President Erdogan well and Turkish foreign policy, not to mention his background as a senator before. So both presidents know each other quite well. This is going to be a transactional relationship going forward. And I think the NATO summit that's coming up in July in Lithuania will be the venue where these two presidents get together and sort of try to get together a deal where U.S. can offer the F-16s, and in the return, perhaps Turkey will enable Sweden to access NATO. I think that's what's shaping up here in about a month and a half or so. That's the news will be Sweden becoming a part of NATO and Turkey getting the jets that they want.
Tulin, in the past year or so, Erdogan has also set himself up as something of a statesman who can possibly broker peace between Ukraine and Russia to resolve that conflict. In fact, he has been involved in this before. He was instrumental in getting food exported out of Ukraine. I mean, where do you see this going? I mean, will he be able to do anything? Will these efforts bring any results at all?
Well, I mean, I don't know. The West is very adamant in its policy towards Russia, and that they want to, and they decided to support Ukraine till the end, wherever it goes. The West, from the US to the many European Union countries, they have already decided that they are going to provide every single ammunition or military support to Ukraine. The US has also promised to send F-16s to Ukraine. This was something that the Biden administration was resisting not to do. And so this is just, you know, something that is above and beyond what Turkey can achieve. But in this regard, Mr. Erdogan says that Turkey is a NATO member country and that it is going to stay as one. So if this is the roadmap for Turkey to, you know, take as its priority, there are also, I mean, it also brings limitations to it. And Mr. Biden did not want to bring the F-16s and Sweden's NATO membership into this kind of an equilibrium. But in his first telephonic conversation with Mr. Erdogan to congratulate him after the second round, this is what he did. So eventually what I do see is that the US still recognizes Turkey as an important NATO member country. And so whatever it takes, they're going to do it. And Turkey has to adjust its maneuvering between Russia and the US accordingly. And Mr. Erdogan has been doing that for the past year or so.
Right, you say it's maneuvering that Mr. Erdogan has to engage in. How successful has he been in this sort of balancing act? You know, as you point out, Turkey is a member of NATO, but at the same time, it hasn't really taken sides in this conflict.
I think he's doing well when it comes to the Ukraine war. He has been helping out to Ukraine, but also Turkey is a neighboring country to Russia. And there are also other challenges regarding Syria. So Turkey has to really watch out for its own national security. In that regard, there has been a lot of mistakes in the Turkish foreign policy, and, you know, vis-a-vis the Syrian policy. And so, but Mr. Erdogan has been in the normalization mode for the past 3-4 years. He started with normalizing relations with Israel, with the United Arab Emirates. And so he has also been shifting and kind of, you know, transforming his foreign policy.
Right.
So far, so good when it comes to Ukraine. That's what I can say.
All right, Yenal, I want to get to one other issue that was part of the election, and that is the refugee situation, the Syrian refugee situation in Turkey. There are 4 million Syrian refugees in the country. The opposition candidate, Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu, he took a very hard line. He said they have to go back to Syria. Erdogan is a little bit more conciliatory, but he does want to resettle about 1 million of those refugees in parts of Syria that is controlled by Turkiye. I mean, do you see this being resolved? What happens next?
To a certain extent, I do see that resolved. Obviously, Turkey played a significant role in the conflict by hosting, as you mentioned, 4+ million Syrian refugees, and then also requested European involvement, some monetary, some other ways. As a result, Turks are displeased with some of the outcomes. Now the war is over, we can call it, and they want some of their Syrians to leave the country, go back to their country. And I think he has heard the constituents in Turkey, and there will be some changes, definitely, that's for sure. We've already seen, based on the reports that are being issued in Turkey, there's some movements on the ground, and I think in the next year or so there will be some movement. But at the same time, it's important to keep that in mind that this is probably going to be in phases. I don't expect all 4+ million to be going back to Syria. Some of them are already settled and working and voting in Turkey. That's a fact, right?
Giran, President Erdogan has a new mandate, another 5 years. What does it mean for the country's Kurdish population?
Well, I think in the election campaign, the Kurds showed a commitment to democracy in Turkey at significant risk to themselves. And they committed fully, as we can see in the data that's coming through, and in the Kurdish majority cities, Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu was supported overwhelmingly. I fear that the Kurds can and might face repercussions for this, as Erdogan shows no sign of relenting with his polarizing rhetoric. And I feel that with local elections 10 months away, there's no incentive for Erdogan to soften his tone in regards to the country's issues. Even in his victory speech, again, he was using LGBT as a slur, as an insult, again, attacking various portions of society and the international actors that are involved as well. So I fear that a rough period is awaiting the Kurds, and not just the Kurds inside Turkey, but in Syria and Iraq as well, as Turkey has shown before that it sees no issues in attacking Kurds inside and outside of its borders.
Hakan, very quickly, I'm going to get about 20 seconds. If you look at what the Western media has been reporting, some of the Western media, I should say, have been reporting about this election. The Washington Post ran an opinion piece in which the author said her heart was broken by the outcome of the election. The Guardian said Turkish democracy was the big loser on Sunday night. So a lot of disillusion, disappointment in some of the Western media.
Usual suspects. Their master's voices, just shouting nonsense, not the reality on the ground. I mean, this is a factual things in your head. Man is loved and elected, and over again. That just shows the Western media, whatever they're trying, is just fruitless.
Okay, we are going to have to leave it there. We've run out of time. Thanks to all of you for being with us. That is it for this edition of The Heat. I'm Anand Naidu in Washington, D.C.